Hello, everyone. Welcome back to NFL Jam Bets, NFL Week 11. I am Tike, joined as always by the magnificent Mamma Mia. So we're going to go over just a couple things on today's video. We're going to give our recap of the Thursday night AFC East divisional game, Jets versus the Patriots. Mamma Mia had a pretty remarkable call on that game. And then we're going to dive into some players that we like to over and underperform for week 11. And then we're going to give just a little bit of information and some tidbits on the Bears at Minnesota. So, Mamma Mia, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with your recap?
All right, Thursday night, New England dominated, right? Um, I had Drake May. He was supposed to achieve 25.8 fantasy points, and he did not. He underachieved. He came up with 17.4. He connected on 23 of 34 passes for 281 yards, one touchdown. But we'll talk about who got all the touchdowns in a minute, right? He did rush 4 times for 2 yards. New England won 27-14. New England pretty much kind of had their way. I think the third quarter they just kind of sat back and let Fields have that second touchdown just because they felt like they're, like a cat playing with the mouse, right? Like, let him go. I'll catch him later. And then I had for my underperformer the Jets defense, and they did underperform. They were supposed to get 10.9 fantasy points. We had expected them to give up 30 points, but they didn't. But they did have 27 points given up and 1 sack. They came up with 7.5 fantasy points. So I was 50-50 on that game. And nothing special. It wasn't a crazy Thursday night game. I kind of fell into place the way we thought. And I had projected, a 13-point gap. I had projected 26-13, and it was 27-14. I was close. Yeah.
Vegas Mama over here. They're going to start putting their lines based on what you say. No,
this game was predictable. So how about you?
That's a remarkable call. Being off by 1 point on each team's total and nailing the exact winning margin. That's impressive. So I gave out one player. I gave out Travion Henderson as my overperformer, and he overperformed. So for those of you watching this video that played on the guy that I was hyping on, kudos. I share a fantasy team with one of my good friends who pulled Travion Henderson out of our starting lineup and didn't play him. So I'm a little upset about that. So if you're watching this video, you know who you are. I did take the Jets also. I thought the Jets were going to cover. But we'll take the push. We'll take the tie on the 13. If you got them at 13.5, you got the win there. But let's jump right into some players that we're watching out for week 11. Mamma Mia, who's your first player?
My first player, Michael Penix, is going to the Carolina Panthers, and I don't have any faith in him. I think he's going to underperform. He has only passed for more than 1 touchdown in 2 games this year. He's awful. He's not the answer. Last week against the Colts, he was 12 of 28. It's less than a 60% completion rate, 177 yards, 1 touchdown. Drake London is the only one who seems to be able to connect with him, and then a 2-point conversion. He's projected to have 253 yards, 1.3 touchdowns, half of an interception for 19.2 fantasy yards. His average is 16.8 fantasy points a week. Carolina is a sneaky little team, and their defense is pretty good. So week 3 when he played in Carolina, he had 3.78 fantasy points. So they got his number. And this one is in Carolina, so No, this one is in Atlanta. I apologize, but I still don't think he can't throw. I don't know what's going on with him. They're either calling, and then his tight end Kyle Pitts, drop him. God, he's horrible. He's just horrible. I can't. He was the number 1 draft pick. I just shake my head every time I watch that guy. Last week, first play, threw it, hit him in the hands, he dropped it. That guy's he's awful. He's just awful. So that's my first one. Tyke, how about you? What do you got going on this weekend? Who do you like? Don't like?
So the first player I'm picking to overperform, taking Steelers running back Jaylen Warren. So past this last week, he had a carry rate or carry share percentage of 88% of all of Pittsburgh's carries. That is a career high for him. On top of that, his upward trend of carries percentage per game has been increasing. His past 4 games have been his 4 highest carry percentage games in his career. So Kenneth Gainwell seems to be getting phased out of this offense, going fully to Jaylen Warren. So I like the upside. The carries should absolutely be there. Steelers are playing the Bengals this week, so divisional game, typically a little bit closer than the non-divisional games. However, Cincinnati is horrible against the run, and Cincinnati is still almost a full touchdown underdog in this game. So Steelers should be running the ball often with the lead. And then on top of that, Cincinnati, they are the 3rd worst in the league, allowing 2.71 yards before contact, positive yards before contact on run plays. So they're almost giving up 3 yards per rush attempt before they're even making contact with the dang ball carrier. On top of that, Cincinnati is 2nd in the league in yards per carry. They're giving up 5.47 yards per carry, and they're giving up the most amount of running back rushing yards per game so far this season. They are giving up 141.1 yards per game to running backs on just rush attempts. So I just see this as a feast game for Jaylen Warren. Expect the Steelers to get up pretty heavily. I think Warren will probably get in the end zone, but I like his rushing numbers the most. He's only projected to have 79 rushing yards. That doesn't make any sense to me. He's going to get more than 79 yards in this game. It's not going to take a lot of carries for him to get that either. So I'm taking Jaylen Warren as my overperformer. I think he might get in the end zone, but I think he's absolutely going to exceed his rushing yards here as well. All right, Mamma Mia, who's the next player you're looking at?
Okay, I'm going back to my team that I keep looking at to get things rolling. I'm looking at the Tampa Bay backfield. They are without Bucky Irving. And our friend Rashad White, he's been shouldering a lot, but last week we started to see this kid called Sean Tucker. And I think he's going to overperform this week against Buffalo. He's projected for 10 attempts at rushing attempts for 50 yards and half of a touchdown. 10.4 fantasy points. He's only averaging 3.3, but it's because the first 7 games he really didn't get a lot of touches. The last 2 weeks, which would be week 8, because they had a week bye week in week 9, against New Orleans, he was 12 for 42 and a touchdown. He got 10.2 fantasy points. Then last week against New England, he ran 9 for 53 yards, no touchdowns, 1 catch for 2 yards, 6.1 fantasy points. I think this is the game where they're going to scheme him in pretty good. I think they like to allow Rashad White to come out of the backfield on, those pitch around the corners and screen passes. And the Bills have allowed the 6th most fantasy points to rushes. 26 fantasy points a game to the rushing, 5.4 yards a carry on average. This is going to be a great game. Both teams have got to win. Buffalo, they seem to have their division locked up, but they need to win for home field advantage. I think they spent all their energy on beaten Kansas City once. You know, it seems like they beat Kansas City at home, and then they were awfully flat last week. And I think they can be ran on. And that Baker Mayfield guy, coming off a bye week, right? I think he's gonna be chomping at the bit to just tear Buffalo to pieces. So I think Tucker's gonna run the ball quite a bit. I'm looking forward to that, especially they need Rachaad White to receive, because Godwin and Evans are out there a little banged up. I don't know where that Jalen McMillan kid went. He was really good last year, but so it looks like White's gonna probably be not a third down back, but kind of a gadget guy. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Tyke, how about you?
Yeah, so the last player I'm looking at, taking another overperformer, going to the Monday night football game, taking George Pickens as my overperformer. So George Pickens, 4 out of his last 4 games, has 78 or more receiving yards. Yet he's only projected 68 so far for this week. On top of that, they're playing against the Raiders. Raiders are not a lockdown defense by any means of the imagination. The Raiders are very predictable defense so far this season as well. The Raiders play the cover 3 at 45% of all defensive plays. So nearly half of their snaps, you know what they're going to be in. They're not doing anything else really at a high rate. They're just coming out cover 3. They're using some blitzes and some cover 2 outside of there as well. But for the most part, when you come out on first down, you pretty much know they're going to be in cover 3. On top of that, this is George Pickens' defense that he likes to pick on. Against the cover 3, George Pickens has a 3.41 yards per route ran and a 27% target share against the cover 3 so far this season. Now, comparing that to CeeDee Lamb, this is not a defense that CeeDee Lamb typically picks on. CeeDee Lamb's yards per route ran is only a 1.68, when George Pickens was a 3.41. So Pickens is actually more than double his yards per route ran against this defense. And then Lamb's target rate against the cover 3 is only 18%, where Lamb's is 27%. So I see a lot of avenues here for George Pickens. CeeDee Lamb's obviously going to get more of the attention from the Raiders defense, which I think just more opens up the possibility for Pickens here to have a good game. On top of that, the Raiders defense is giving up 126.4 yards per game to wide receivers aligned on the outside, which is where Pickens plays. Lamb will be in the slot. Lamb's maybe outside on a couple of plays, but Pickens is the outside deep threat receiver. And the Raiders are terrible against that. So it just looks like it's lining up for George Pickens to have a good game here. So I'm taking George Pickens to overperform. I don't know if he's going to get into the end zone, but I'm thinking he's going to have at least 70 yards and maybe five receptions on this game. So if he gets in the end zone, he's going to clear his fantasy projection by a long shot. But I still think he'll overperform on his fantasy projection just with his yards and catches. All right, Mamma Mia, do you have another player for us?
I don't. I think there's going to be a bunch of really good games this week. So, no, I don't have another player ready to talk about.
Okay.
We can talk about the Bears game.
Let's talk about the Bears.
Yeah.
The Bears. So Bears going into Minnesota. NFC North divisional game. Minnesota won the first matchup of the season. Bears need to win this game, in my opinion. Bears cannot go 0-3 in the division if they want to keep any chances of making the playoffs. Bears are it looks like it's moving around a little bit right now, from anywhere from a 2.5 to a 3-point underdog, with the over-under firmly set at 48.5. So for the Bears, got some injuries here. TJ Edwards is out. Brisker is questionable. I'm hoping Brisker will play. Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, obviously both out. However, Jalen Johnson, he's looks like he's coming back. He potentially could be back next week. Looks like he'll be back in the next 2 to 3 games. I'm hoping he comes back and is able to get this defensive back going here. And then on Minnesota's side, Ryan Kelly, starting center, is out, and Jonathan Greenard, the outside linebacker, is also listed as out. So, Mama, any key takeaways? Anything you're looking at in this game?
Well, as I look back to the first game of the season, and they beat our Bears, in the last quarter, kind of some hiccup stuff went on. But the Bears, they gave up 27 points, the defense did. They did get one interception, and they sacked him 3 times. So I think he can be sacked, and I think the Bears are going to pin their ears back because they're not the same team they were in week 1. I don't think they are. I think they've been progressing. I know I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but I really think they're going to go into Minnesota and upset them. I think Aaron Jones is kind of gimpy. So, I think, McCarthy's going to have to throw the ball. And I think our defensive guys are ready for him this time. I think they're looking back and saying, this is our game. And Caleb it's going to depend on how he plays, obviously. I'm hoping that, he's paying attention, and the coach is going to give him a good scheme. So if he can just work within that, everyone does their job, they should walk away with the W and start moving up the depth chart on this division here. But that's what I think is going to happen. I think the Bears are going to win. I think it's going to be under, and I think the Bears are going to win. So they're obviously going to cover. So that's what I think. How about you?
So couple things I want to point out here. So Minnesota runs a 2-high safety at the highest rate in the NFL. They're running 2-high safety 69.4% of all snaps. Now they're able to do that. They're able to hide a lot of the coverages that they're actually running by keeping 2 high safeties, bringing one safety down, going cover 3, or running the cover 3 out of the 2-high safety. So it'll be interesting to watch to see how the Vikings are using that to disguise the actual coverage that they are in. Now, Rome Doomsday has been the go-to against 2-high safeties for the Bears. He has a 22% target rate against 2-high safeties. However, I don't put a lot of value in 2-high safeties because that doesn't exactly show what defensive scheme the defense is actually using. You can run 2-high safety and do a lot of different things out of there. But the Vikings do that to disguise the coverage that they're actually going to use. So I'll be watching, see how that goes. A little Caleb versus 2-high safety Brian Flores game. That'll be interesting to watch. I want to talk J.J. McCarthy here a little bit. I think this game is going to be interesting to see if McCarthy can step up or if the Bears' defense secondary is truly as bad as it has been shown over the past couple weeks. So far this season, J.J. McCarthy is last for all starting quarterbacks in the following positions. He has the worst passer rating in the NFL at a 65.8%. He has the lowest accuracy throw rate in the NFL at a 43.5% rate. And his catchable throws is only 63.9%. Those are all dead last of starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So, be curious to see if J.J. McCarthy comes out here and looks like Peyton Manning. I'm just giving up on the Bears secondary for the season. I know Jalen Johnson may come back, but if J.J. McCarthy comes out here and looks like a rock star after he's been just looking horrible every other game, then that's just it. The Bears secondary cannot do it. On top of that, I think the Bears secondary and defense in general, they're getting a little bit predictable. They are running 2 defensive schemes. They're running the cover 3 27.8% of defensive plays, and the cover 2, 22.3% of all plays. So that's a 51% that they're coming out in these two shells. And McCarthy, he's actually been pretty decent against these two coverage shells as well. Looks like McCarthy's not very good against the cover 1 and some of these blitzes. So maybe Dennis Allen will get a little unpredictable and do some of that this season. But against the cover 3 and the cover 2, J.J. McCarthy has a 6.5 yards per attempt and a 4.5 completion percentage over expectation, which means he's completing more passes against these types of shells than what is expected for the average quarterback. So he's above average against these two shells that the Bears are going to be rolling out nearly 50 or over 50% of every play. I do think J.J. McCarthy is probably going to have more than 220 passing yards just because the Bears secondary, and that's just such a low mark. He had 248 against the Ravens last week. The Ravens are a little bit more healthy, so we'll see that. And then for the Caleb tracker, Caleb Williams is on pace currently for more than 4,000 yards. He's on pace for 4,034 yards. He needs to continue with about 262 yards per game in order to exceed that 4,000 yard mark. So I'm going to take the Bears to cover. I'm going to take the Bears to cover the 3. Maybe that'll move to 3.5. That would be spectacular. But I think the Bears can cover the 3 points, 3-point road dogs. So Vegas is basically saying these teams are even. So I'm going to take the Bears with the points here. All right, Mamma Mia. Anything else?
Okay, so since I'm going out on limbs, I'm saying Chicago's going to outright win. I think Detroit upsets Philadelphia as well. Going to be a great game. And my real reach here, and I could change my mind by the time the game starts, but I like Tampa Bay beating Buffalo this week. It's a 5.5 point spread. They'll at least cover it. They'll cover it. I think they'll outright win it, though. So those are some of the things that I'm kind of betting against, spitting into the wind, if you will. We'll see if I get it right back or if I have to duck. All right. But, yeah, there's so many good games, and these were so hard to pick this week because a lot of them are divisional. A lot of them are really close. Yep. Okay. Love it. Have a good week.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.